Federalist Papers were written from 1787 to 1788 by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. They were originally published in several New York state newspapers to persuade New York voters to ratify the proposed Constitution that had been crafted at the Philadelphia Convention in 1787. Numbering 85, the essays outline the ways the new federal government would operate and why this type of government was the best choice for the United States of America. Each of the essays was signed Publius, and they remain today as an excellent reference for anyone who wants to study and understand the United States Constitution. Hamilton opens Federalist No. 1 with an introduction of the present state of affairs in the then existing United States of America, and his plan to explain over a series of papers why the new federal government created by the U.S. Constitution was necessary. Premised in his argument is a fundamental foundation upon which our system of government is based, one of self-government, or rule by the consent of the governed. At the time of the writing of Federalist No. 1, the United States of America is governed by the Articles of Confederation, drafted by the Second Continental Congress in 1776. However, by the time of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, many of the inadequacies of the Articles of Confederation became obvious. The government created by the Articles was incapable of providing the authority and power needed to be a fully functioning authority. The federal government had no power to tax, and as such could not meet even its most basic financial responsibilities. In addition, the Articles provided no authority for Congress to resolve conflicts between the states or to set up countrywide rules to encourage merchants and commerce. Hamilton, along with many other of our founders, recognized that if the United States was ever to become an economic powerhouse, capable of defending itself from enemies without and within, it was essential that the changes proposed in the Constitution were adopted. Now, more than 200 years later, we Americans share in the legacy created by these men and women who had such foresight and wisdom. Federalist No. 1 by Alexander Hamilton. After an obvious experience of the inefficiency of the existing federal government, we are called upon to deliberate on a new Constitution for the United States of America. It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country by their conduct and example to decide the important question whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. If there be any truth in the remark, the crisis at which we are arrived may, with propriety, be regarded as the era in which that decision is to be made, and a wrong election on the part we shall act may, in this view, deserve to be considered as the general misfortune of mankind. Among the most formidable of the obstacles which the new Constitution will have to encounter may readily be distinguished the obvious interest of a certain class of men in every state to resist all changes which may hazard a diminishing of the power, money, and consequence of the offices they hold under the state establishments, and the perverted ambition of another class of men who will either hope to empower themselves by the confusions of their country or will flatter themselves with fair prospects of elevation from the subdivision of the empire into several partial confederacies than from its union under one government. It is not, however, our design to dwell upon observations of this nature. Candor will oblige us to admit that even such men may be actuated by upright intentions, and it cannot be doubted that much of the opposition which has made its appearance, or may hereafter make its appearance, will spring from the honest errors of minds led astray by preconceived jealousies and fears. So numerous indeed, and so powerful are the causes which serve to give us a false bias to the judgment, that we may, upon many occasions, see wise and good men on the wrong as well as on the right side of questions of the first magnitude to society. This circumstance, if duly attended to, would furnish a lesson of moderation to those who are ever so much persuaded of their being in the right in any controversy. As in all former cases of great national discussion, a torrent of angry and malignant passions will be let loose. To judge from the conduct of the opposite parties, we shall be led to conclude that they will mutually hope to demonstrate the justness of their opinions and to increase the number of their converts by the loudness of their declamations and the bitterness of their criticisms. Federalist Number 1, written by Alexander Hamilton, shows that he was aware of the enormous historical gravity of the situation America was facing at the time. It's easy to see, looking back in time with hindsight, that had the states failed to ratify the new Constitution, that it certainly would have been, in Hamilton's words, considered as the general misfortune of mankind. For Hamilton to recognize this early on shows him to be quite the visionary. This quote near the beginning of Federalist Number 1 sums up the historical context and magnitude of what lay before them. It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country, by their conduct and example, to decide the important question whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend for their political constitutions on accident and force. Hamilton's insights into human nature and political discourse warn of the dangers they face in their deliberations. He further observes, "A torrent of angry and malignant passions will be let loose. To judge from the conduct of the opposite parties, we shall be led to conclude that they will mutually hope to demonstrate the justness of their opinions and to increase the number of their converts by the loudness of their declamations and the bitterness of their criticisms." This is the nature of man, and we can see that not much has changed in the last 220 some years. But Hamilton's warnings about the ineffectiveness of angry words and attacks illustrate that the founders wrestled with these traits of human nature then as we do now. Both sides of the political spectrum were guilty of this in Hamilton's era, just as some of both sides are today. Hamilton recognizes this danger and urges that political discussions be conducted without anger or personal attacks.